Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fluid Operations Podcast with Miller, Truby, and Kirk Wessel. We are here today with another really exciting guest. We are very happy to be joined today by Shawn Powell from Avila CSD in California. Shawn is a longtime operator who also happens to be a media personality. Shawn is the owner of the Wastewater Enthusiast YouTube channel, at Wastewater Enthusiast on YouTube. Go check him out. This will likely be a collaborative post, so welcome to his audience, and thank you for joining us. For anybody who isn't familiar with Kirk and myself and Fluid Operations, and if you're watching this podcast on our side, go and follow Shawn and his YouTube channel. He's great, does a lot of content out there specifically tailored to water and wastewater operators, and that is really great, and we're really excited to talk to him today. Before we get to that, hello, Kirk. Welcome. It is a Friday afternoon. Good to see you again, and hopefully you're as caffeinated and ready to go as I am. How you doing?
I'm doing great. No caffeine this afternoon, so I'm ready to rock and roll. Obviously, you guys are on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast, so it's almost 2:30 in the afternoon for me. So, looking forward to it. It's 78 and sunny, so exciting day, and super excited to be talking to you, Shawn. Should be a great conversation. Again, we started this podcast all about operators, their challenges, their struggles, how to get through them, learning from each other, being collaborative, and hopefully, after we talk today, someone's going to grab a piece of information, be able to learn from it or get an idea or anything of that sort is what we're trying to do. And also just so the general public hopefully will catch it and understand how complicated and difficult and it is to run these facilities. It is extremely complicated. Things break all the time. I think you even mentioned that when we first got here, things have been breaking all day. So for you to take time out of your day to visit with us and take the time, we really appreciate it, and look forward to this discussion.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll kind of start here. If you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey as an operator and within the water industry, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my name is Shawn Powell. I'm the chief operator of the Avila Beach CSD wastewater treatment plant and the drinking water system. My current certifications are grade 5, California grade 5 wastewater treatment plant operator, D3 distribution operator, and a T2 drinking water treatment operator. I got my start around 2010. I was introduced to the industry, and I was a seasonal parks employee that just kind of was cutting grass and cleaning bathrooms, college dropout on the Great American Journey. I'm from Virginia, and I was traveling state park to state park. I started in Colorado and then ended up in California and just moving around and working seasonal jobs, kind of early 20s. That's when you do those types of things, right? And I landed at a state park in the San Francisco Bay called Angel Island and ended up living there for a few years as a state employee, which was a really exciting experience. And they had a little RBC wastewater treatment plant, and they had some wells and a tank, and there was a guy, his name's Rich, my very first chief plant operator, and he kind of took me under his wing, and he saw that I had some aptitude and was interested, and I think what was really interesting was, in the end, what won me his favor was he told me one time how to get the Sac State books, and I went and I took the courses, and I signed up for the test, and he was like, I didn't have to hold your hand. He was really surprised because he kept trying to tell people, if you get these certifications, you're not a college, degree holder like I was, or like he isn't either. You can have a middle class income. Like you don't have to be working class your whole life. There's a path. And he was always amazed at how difficult it was to get people to sign up for the Sac State course. Now that's level 1, is get the course. Level 2 is reading the book. And as I got into it, I was like, whoa. I just started with drinking water treatment, and it was just, it was fire hose of information. But I remember the time I actually fell in love with the industry was during the corrosion control chapter. I think it was chapter 8, if memory serves correctly. I want to say it was, but when I actually started learning about corrosion control, cathodic protection, and these types of things, it really started to hook me. And I went out and I got my T2, D2. He OIT'd me as a grade 1 operator, and I was still only a seasonal. I was living in a dorm because even though I was certified and how the state works its classifications, I was in lift stations helping, and now getting paid with a lot of experience, but helping Rich wire up pumps, getting splattered, doing all these things, and I was making $11 an hour. And it was tough to make that kind of pay. And you hear this a lot from OITs, especially in California, that we get paid with breadcrumbs and attaboys, because there's just not, there, at that time, and I think the culture is changing, at that time, OITs were volunteer positions and positions like I was in, because you would be so lucky to get a certification. It's very hard. We have an 1,800-hour threshold to overcome of experience before you can be certified. So in California, you can get your drinking water certs with no experience, and you can walk in and have a certification, say, I can work in this plant today. On the wastewater side, you go in and you cannot be an operator in training to even start accruing hours towards that until a chief plant operator has issued you a duty statement. So it's kind of backwards, and it makes it really, first of all, logistically difficult to understand for a prospective operator. And then there's the barrier of entry of, oh, I understand it. That seems like a lot of work. Never mind. And so I've heard this term recently thrown around, the water Sherpas. Like, there's those of us that take people and guide them through, right? And so Rich guided me through this process, and he was there the whole step of the way. And as he was guiding me through as my first mentor in the space, he would drill me constantly on math. He would make sure that me, the seasonal that gets no state benefits, was getting into classes that I was being paid by the state to attend classes. He was advocating for me. And in the end, I needed a full-time job. Like, it was just kind of coming to a head. And the state just couldn't do it. We were in a kind of a financial crisis. We're still coming out of the big financial crisis of 2008. The budget was still a mess. And so, I just started applying to other jobs, and I was picked up by Montero Water and Sanitary District, just south of Pacifica, California, little sleepy town. And they had a T3 water treatment plant. They had D2 system, 9 different pressure zones. And that's where I went there and had the time of my life. I loved it and really enjoyed it. And I'd probably still be there today if there weren't some outside sources of influence in my life, guiding me other ways that were personal. And so I ended up in Mount Shasta, California as the public works supervisor at 28 years old. It was a total, like, I'm not getting this job, but there was some pressure for me to move up north. So, and this is just a funny story I don't think I've ever shared on my channel. That
oh, nice.
Simultaneously to that job offer at Mount Shasta City, I was offered a treatment plant operator job at East Bay Municipal Utility District.
Oh, wow.
I was a T2, D2, and I was just a nerd about water. That's the only thing I could think of that got me that offer. Was I nailed the aptitude test. I went through their exam thing, and it was so funny. I had so much imposter syndrome, and I was so full of so much doubt that when I got my exam scores for that in-person exam, I was ranked number 1. And I was like,
nice.
That must be the lowest rank. That was literally what went through my mind.
They're rating it in reverse.
It must be 10 to 1. Yeah. And then actually I got in a little bit of a tiff with the panel, because it was almost like a good cop, bad cop sort of deal. And I remember just kind of snapping at one of them, like, because I was just like, man, you don't rake me over the coals like this. And I guess they liked that. I don't know if they were like looking for somebody that was going to push back on them. And I remember calling my old boss from State Parks. I was driving back to my apartment, and he was like, how'd it go? I was like, there's no way I got that job, because I mouthed off to him. And no, I ranked 1. And then I was invited
Nice.
I was one of 5 people invited to an in-person with the head of the drinking water treatment for East Bay Mud, and somebody else that I think his boss was in there. And I just was a relaxed dude, having a nice time. And I learned a little bit about chloramines. And I just remember them telling me, I remember nothing else from this interview, but I remember them telling me that when you are at a swimming pool and you smell a chlorine smell, that is an indicator that people are peeing in the pool. And I remember leaning over the table. I kind of put my hands on the table like this and went, guys, if I don't get this job and nothing else comes of this, I'm so glad we had this talk, because now I understand what that means, right? And they were laughing, and it was a great time. So that was my experience going through East Bay Mud. Never once thinking that I was going to get this job. That is like a Cadillac utility. I'm not good enough for them, right? Well, it turns out I was, because they offered me the position. And I initially said, I'm going to East Bay Mud. But this influence in my life can probably gather it was a girlfriend, influence in my life was like, no, I want to move north. And I was like, ugh. And so I called the head of drinking water for East Bay Mud and said, I got a predicament. I want to do this, but I've also got this other job that I wasn't expecting to get an offer for this one either. It's public works supervisor. And this is what I'd be doing. And it would be plowing snow, paving roads, collections, like all of it. And he was very, very kind. He said, look, we want you here. Like you're our pick, but I'm not going to lie. There's 5 more people right behind you ready to come in that are just as qualified. And he said, it's not going to hurt our feelings if you say no. But what I will tell you is if you work for us, you will be able to say that you can operate a 40 MGD drinking water treatment facility by yourself, and you'll be a T5 and you can go anywhere.
Yep.
And he said, and you'll be making about $120,000 in your second year. It's up to you. And he said, but if you go there, you'll be a generalist, you'll get supervisory experience, and if you do well, you'll be able to write your ticket anywhere. And he said, so I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's your choice. And so this was the test. I went back to Mount Shasta City and I said, you have to give me a truck to commute in, you have to pay my move, and you have to bring me in at top step. And I think there were a couple other things and I was like, there's no way. This is my out, that I'm not going to have to go up there.
They're going to say no,
I'm
for
going to go to
sure.
East Bay Mud. And they said, you betcha, dude, come on up. All my demands, they met all of them, no counter, which, by the way, anybody watching, if that happens, you didn't ask for enough. I learned that as well.
Exactly.
Okay. So I went to Mount Shasta, and it was awesome. It was wonderful. I loved it. Like I said, plowing snow, paving roads, collections, and we were a 3 million gallon a day drinking water distribution system. We had a collection system that we did, 8-person crew. That's where I learned how to run a VATCon. I got my Class B license, was driving the VATCon. We were jetting lines, we were doing all these things. It was just a wonderful experience, very hands-on. And then I approached my boss about getting my wastewater cert. We had a plant there. It had a DAF unit. It was ponds, but they're putting in an activated sludge plant in. It was going to be great. It was reclaimed water. I'm unsure exactly how the reclaimed fit in with the ponds. I wasn't as involved with that plant. We went as a crew to make repairs, but I didn't operate it. And I was like, man, can you get me an OIT? Can you get me an OIT? And I just need this wastewater certificate. It is so important to me. And they just were like, well, it's not your job. Like, your job is this. And so my old boss from State Parks was working on me, and they'd fixed their budget and they'd kind of figured it out. And they said, hey, water sewage plant supervisor, you just got to get your wastewater and you're in. You get a state house, you're in control and of your own program, which I was in Shasta, but I didn't have the wastewater side. And so I took the plunge. I went back to the Bay Area and I did 7 years there. I ended up promoting a park maintenance chief, where I oversaw not just the water and wastewater ops for the parks in Marin County, California, Angel Island, Mount Tam, Tomales Bay, St. P. Taylor, and a couple others. All the collections, all the drinking water, all the wastewater, and then the building maintenance, the trails and stuff like that. And so there were people that were in control of those programs. I collaborated with them, or I directly oversaw, the staff that were doing that. And that was a really great learning experience. And then I met my wife, and we, fell in love, all the things. And at that point I don't know if you're familiar with Marin County or not, but anybody that's watching, a little bit. If you know where Muir Woods is, if you ever go down the road, if you leave Muir Woods and head to Muir Beach, there's a little road between those two. It's called Frank Valley Road. And there's 2 houses about a mile away from Muir Woods in the valley. Those are state residences, and I lived in one of them for 3 years, and it was amazing. And so this is why it's a little bit of a life hack. When you work for the state parks, you get a house, and it turns a lot of people off because they see, $70,000 a year to be an operator. Screw that. But what I saw was $70,000 a year, and I paid $300 a month in rent for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch house at the base of Mount Tam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that works out.
The math works. Okay. So I was living the great life. Wonderful life. We decided to get married, all the things, and her parents live on the Central Coast. We bought a house, put some renters in it. And when our first kid was going to come, that's when we were going to move. We got pregnant. I moved here. I started working for a contract operator. At that point, I was still only a T2, D3 wastewater 2. And I had this wastewater 2. I needed a job. And so I applied to this contract operator that was looking for a water operator. And were not asking for wastewater. I just happened to throw my wastewater 2 in there on my, just another certificate. Apparently I learned later, they saw my grade 2 and they called me immediately. I had a job offer like in 6 days and I still was a little, like I knew how valuable my certifications were, but I didn't realize that the golden ticket was the wastewater yet. And I got to working for them and they had all these plants all over. Reclaimed water, membrane filtration, activated sludge, trickling filters. I mean, because it was a contract, and you were going from city to city to city, and district to district, and little teeny plant, and then a big plant, and it was like really a great experience. And that's where I upgraded up to a grade 4, and then Avila Beach CSD opened up where I am now, and it's a chief plant operator, and so I put in for it, and I love it here. I couldn't ask for anything better. All the work dynamic is wonderful. And I end up getting a lot of stuff dialed in, and I'm looking around going, I know a lot and I want to share it, but I don't know how to share it. And so I was maybe looking to do a contract ops. I don't want to go back to that. That is a drag, by the way. Contract operations can be very stressful. And I was like, I love my plant. I don't want to go operate anywhere else. Maybe I'll teach, but I didn't know how to teach. Like I didn't know how to who's going to select me because I'm Y? Because I'm a grade 4? That's not good enough. So I had this idea. I'm going to put out some stuff on YouTube and let me see if I'm good at this at all. And so I went to my boss and said, I got this idea. I'm not going to do it unless you say yes, because I need the plant as a backdrop. If you can let me use the plant, it will bring the credibility up. If it's just Shawn in front of a whiteboard, I'm just another guy in front of a whiteboard. Who cares? But if I can actually demonstrate on YouTube what I'm doing, I think it can help people. And he thought about it for like 5 seconds and went, yeah, I think it can be really good for the industry. One catch, don't do it on the clock. Which, if you look at some of my videos, I kind of have to, because I'll put a GoPro on and I'll break a pump apart. I'm not doing that for free. I'm obviously, on the clock in those moments, but I found a way to layer it. But if you ever see me do a math lesson or this, for instance, I'm not being paid right now. I'm in my office, but I clock out and I do these things and I clock back in. And Brad has been very, very generous with my time and with flexibility to be able to do this side project, which is the Wastewater Enthusiast. And it took off immediately. I don't know, as of today, I've been doing it just shy of 14 months. And I'm at 40, I think I'm going to hit 4,400 subscribers today. And it's I've been invited back to Tri-State now to teach, and people are coming at me, asking me to do things for them. And it's wow, I knew it was needed. So I had a hunch that this was needed. I didn't realize how much it was needed. And the other thing is I almost talked myself out of it. I don't work at a 300 million gallon a day plant. I don't work at a regional SAN. I've never done that. The biggest plant I've ever worked in is 3 MGD. So it's what can I teach people? I don't think I can, because I'm not a big dog. And what I realized was actually I might have more to give, because as a small plant operator, I touch everything every single day versus somebody who might be on the belt press this month, and that's what they do that month. And I do have some apparently engaging teaching talent that I've been told by a few people I have. Still, I'm just a dude, and I try to portray that in the YouTube channel. I think I connect with operators when they realize I'm just one of them, and I'm just trying to help.
Realistically, I think that's probably a large part of the success. I think if you were coming from a different position, more polished and more representative of the industry, corporate standards, you probably would have fewer people wanting to see what you have to say and see the sort of generalist knowledge that you bring, because it would be much more focused and specific, and therefore would be something you can get from a textbook. Whereas what you bring that's the stuff that can't come from a textbook, because you've been the guy responsible for, plowing snow and paving the street and, picking up stray dogs and whatever else at some of these places.
Oh, shoveling dead deer off the road.
Yeah.
Yep, been
And
there.
the reality for a huge number of utilities in the United States is that it is not the standard stuff that you get in a textbook and a training course. And quite frankly, and again, not to cast aspersions, East Bay Mud, like you said, is one of the preeminent utilities in this country, water utilities in this country. But it would be a much more standard set of what's the word I'm looking for here? The experiences that you've had would be much more standard if you had gone that route.
Oh, yes.
As opposed to the way that you went, which is why you now have, I think, the ear of the industry, because a different perspective that isn't being represented by the texts and the standards.
Well, 100%. And it was funny. I ran this idea by one of my buddies who's he's just a genius pump guy, like an electrical. He just does awesome stuff. And I mentioned this idea, and I was like, here's a couple of my videos before the videos were really even out. I was like, can you watch these? And always an honest ear and an honest confidant. He'll give me his true feelings. He said, I like where you're going with it. Just my one thing I would ask is don't make it like an OSHA 40 seminar. He said, if you've ever been through OSHA 40, do the opposite of that. And so I was like, okay, and just be engaging and have some fun with it. And yeah, I think another buddy's told me I caught lightning in a bottle, and I think he's right. I didn't mean for it to be like this. We just interviewed an OIT, and we're onboarding him actually. And my boss is sitting there with me, and we're talking to him, and the guy's literally quoting some of my motivational videos to me, giving me stuff like titles of my videos. And it's like, and Brad looked at me like, what are you doing on you? Because I don't think he really watches. And he's like, what are you doing? It's like, I didn't mean for this to happen. I guess I did in a way mean to reach people, but I didn't mean to become a figure or a public figure. I just wanted to help. And it's becoming like, yeah, people know who I am all of a sudden, and it's bringing a lot of attention, but it's good attention.
Yeah, that is really cool. I mean, we hope to be there someday. We're bringing attention. We're trying to bring attention to, what we're doing to bring light to you guys. That was the whole premise of our show, was to highlight the operators. There's so many podcasts out there that are focused on the management side of it and the executive side of it and the KPIs and all that stuff. And we're like, that's a great part of it, but who's digging into the pumps? Like you said, who's breaking those things down? Who's jumping down in the manhole? Who's, fixing that lift station? Who's checking all these things? Who's driving out in the middle of nowhere to find out that, hey, that pump hasn't been running right for 2 weeks, or whatever the cases are. So that's where we wanted to kind of dive into this podcast for us, and learning from people like you as well. Wow. You've got a lot going on, and I think it's really awesome what you've done. And I hope that we can hopefully get there someday as well. That's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, Shawn, one of the things you talked about is you have to run around and take care of so much stuff. Even though it's a small plant, I always talk about it, small plants have the same stuff as big plants, just smaller in size.
Yeah, right.
Right. They still have the same equipment. They still have filters. They still have pumps. They still have clarifiers. They still have pumps, lift stations, all the different things. Just usually it's a smaller pump. It's not, those types of things. So when you have to go around and learn them, how do you know when things are going bad?
That's such an interesting thing you mentioned. So there's the 5 senses, right? And, sight, hearing, smell, feel, and taste. So I advise you not use taste at a wastewater plant, but the other 4 are really helpful. And I've heard this analogy before. I actually don't know if this is a true analogy, but bank tellers aren't allowed to ever handle counterfeit money. They're only allowed to ever handle real money, because when the counterfeit money comes by, they can feel a difference, and they know it flags it, right? So when you're in a wastewater plant, what I learned early on was these senses. Pay attention, and you can start to sense things. The plant almost becomes, it's kind of like this magical thing I think of, this very epic. It becomes an extension of yourself. And you show up and you're almost like, something's not right. Like, I can smell it, I can hear it. So I had a blower go out. Now, it's a little 5.5 horse blower. I wired it up yesterday, and check rotation, everything's fine. And it's putting out air. It doesn't seem like anything's wrong. And today I was going in the blower room with our new OIT, And I went, that motor's making a funny sound. And I was like, I wired it yesterday. All my connections are tight, but I don't like the sound it's making. And he went, I don't hear anything. And all he heard was blowers going, the whirring sound. And I said, no, there's a that should not be there. If you put your ear to all these other motors, they're not making that sound. And so that's kind of like experience is the teacher. And, over a long period of time, I've gathered this. Shawn in 2010 could not do the things that Shawn in 2026 do, right? Or does. Obviously not. And so, but if I were to walk into a different plant that's not my own, I'm not going to have that sixth sense.
Yep.
You have to back to baseline knowledge, right? So that's the books. Baseline knowledge gets you close, and then observation and operator experience gets you closer, and listening to the plant and letting it tell you what it wants. And we're experiencing a lot of mechanical failures right now, and I have to ask myself, truly, is this because we're not doing our jobs right? Or is this because it's just our number's been punched and it's time for everything to break? And sometimes, you have to have that honest conversation with yourself. And the blower that went out, it's a regenerative blower, it's an FPZ, and it was locked up. Motor overload on the VFD. Why? Couldn't tell you. And I open up the volute, and you look at the impeller, and the tolerance is there's none. It's almost not, you can't even measure it. That's an exaggeration, but it's very, very small. And so I pull this thing out and I sand it down, and was there any burrs, anything get in this thing? And it won't spin freely. And we thankfully, critical spare parts, anybody out there that's watching and you don't have a critical spare parts, I advise you have one. I'm really glad I bought the backup blower last year, because that's a $6,000 blower, and it has about a 3-month lead time. So these things it's not Walmart. It's not, you can't just go to the shelf and pick it up. A lot of this stuff there's orders in. And so with this particular one, I'm searching all over it. Was there a Zerk we could have greased? Is there something I should have done differently? Is the filter element fouled? No, it's not. Everything is fine. It's just luck of the draw. And just today I was talking to one of the mechanics for another outfit about something else, and I brought up this blower. I was like, hey, dude, I have sanded it down. It will not spin. When the impeller fan is out, I've got it vertical. I can feel a little something in the motor bearings, so there might be something there. But even if the motor bearings got play in it, if I have that impeller fan vertical, I should be able to spin freely, and it will not. And I said, so is it time for me to get the wire wheel out and start hit? It's an aluminum body, so am I going to get aggressive with this thing, or what do you suggest? And he goes, I'm going to be honest with you, man. Once those things make contact, we toss them. And I was like, yeah, toss them. And he said, yeah. And I said, Nate, this is a $5,000 or $6,000 blower. It's less than 3 years old. That's an expensive wear item. And he was like, yeah, but it's kind of the nature of it now. And I was like, shiminy Christmas. So I'm full of a lot of stubborn. I'm going to keep at it, and I'm going to see if I can get this thing to work. Because the only thing that's locking up is this fan. So this is how you've kind of seen how my mind works, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, I got to pull the thread on the quilt until I'm totally out of options. It's like, okay, we're going to spend $6,000 on a blower, But everything's smaller. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's something like that. You're hoping for the California redemption value on all that aluminum at the end. It shouldn't be that way. It seems like it shouldn't be that way anyway, to somebody looking at it from the outside. And for me, again, we look at this from the tech side of thing. Obviously, where Kirk and I both working for Turing. I look at that and I think, okay, is there some way that we, someone could have saved that situation by applying some sort of, predictive maintenance algorithm? But then, like you said, if there wasn't an obvious sign that it was failing other than a really subtle change in the noise or the sound or something like that, how do you train something to pick that up other than a human operator who has 20 years of experience and has stood next to that blower working normally for 3 years? And that's a really hard thing to overcome. But I think that's the way the industry, and again, part of what we want to talk about on this podcast is the application of tech.
Yeah.
That's the way the industry is trying to go. That's the way the tech world is pushing everything in life to go. And I know there's doubt out there about whether that can be done. And I want to hear from you. Do you think there is a replacement for that human intuition, and then also the side of it and then trying to fix something that seems unfixable?
Yeah, no, to answer your first question, and I've got a strong bias, I don't. And actually, when this plant was installed, I talked to the owner of the manufacturing company that built it. And I said, I've seen the end of my job, and it's these automated boxes. I mean, really, in the end of the day, it's a box with aerators, and it's activated sludge, but it's got all the bells and whistles that does an operator's job. And he said, I don't think so, Shawn. I don't think so. And he's the manufacturer of the I mean, it would be in his best interest if he could replace the operator, right? And he said, for a variety of reasons, but one of them was like, you still need somebody to oversee it, even if it's one person. Like,
right.
You need somebody is the chemical actually feeding? And to hear from some of the commissioning crew from this manufacturer that they went to go do field checks on their facilities in different locations, and the operators weren't doing their job, and they go around the back and the CIP pumps are like, there's puddles of citric all over the place, So you still need competent operators. So just because you have an operator doesn't mean that it's all getting done, right? You need people that are actually diligent watching and not asleep at the wheel. But you do need somebody. And that somebody, as of now, and into the future, as far as I can tell, will be a certified operator. But what does that certified operator look like in 20 years? I think is a lot different than what it looks like today, okay? And what it looked like 20 years ago, okay? We're not doing Imhoff cones and set solids tests all day. Like, if you look at what I do, is very hybrid. I'm a mechanic and an operator, and I know of plants nearby. I won't name any in case I misquote, but I asked them a question because I was getting a tour of their wonderful facility where, their mechanics can't touch a lot of that stuff without an operator present, because it could screw some it could screw some stuff up because everything's so automated. And I said, well, so is the solution to train your operators as mechanics? And they said, nope, other way around. Mechanics need to get certified. And that right there, if you've ever read the book Who Moved My Cheese, go read it if you haven't. There's two creatures in this book called Sniff and Scurry. Sniff was that one. When I heard him say that, and this is a state-of-the-art facility, I sniffed out the change, which is, okay, I got by. I got where I'm at because I have skill. I would have gotten a job anyway if I didn't have mechanical skill, because I had the certification. But I'm in a good position in the new realm because I'm good with pumps. But what I would suggest people really start looking at as operators is getting good at SCADA programming and get good at E&I, electrical and instrumentation. Okay, we still need pump guys and gals, but you don't need to be a certified operator to fix a pump. If you had a certified operator that knew how to program SCADA, I cannot tell you how annoying it is when a SCADA programmer pushes an update and doesn't tell an operator. In my plant, I get annoyed, okay? And somebody gets an earful. In a big plant, you can screw some stuff up in a big way. Big plant, big problems, right? So if you had a programmer or an instrumentation specialist that also had the operator angel on their shoulder talking to them, because they also hold a certificate, I think it would be good. So I think that's the operator of the future, is a hybrid position that, to your point, all this stuff is going automated. You still need somebody to babysit the automation. You don't know for sure that it's actually doing what it's telling you it's doing.
Absolutely. And that's where we come in, right? Yeah. So that's kind of what we're actually doing right now, is bringing all that data together to be that digital assistant. So when the operator makes a choice, it'll go back and understand it. We're recommending you make this choice based on all the information that's out there. Shawn, you know that plant better than I do. You know that plant better than the digital guy does. But once you make that change, it learns from you.
Yeah.
Oh, Shawn did this and it did this. Oh, okay. Well, now it understands what that was. So now you're learning again. So that's the benefit of that little angel is going to be a digital angel instead of a person. You're going to be that person, and it's going to be your helper. Is where I see it going in the next 10 to 15 years. There's going to be a lot of digital assistance. That's with parts of it are AI, but parts of it aren't, right? A lot of it's just unification of data, because right now you have silos of data everywhere. That's what we see at plants all over the country, all over the world, really. Yeah. Because we're a worldwide organization, so we see that all over the world. And ground zero is bringing it all together. Because if you don't know what the front of the plant's doing, how do you know what the back of the plant's doing if it's siloed, operationally wise? And when you change something up front, how does it affect the back? And it takes time for that to flow through to understand that. So getting that understanding is a big part of what we're trying to do. But enough about us. This is about you guys.
But to your point, like I was just this OIT I keep referencing, I showed them the big red book, right? What's the big red book? That's the book we write all of our dirty little secrets in about what we did throughout the day, right? Yep. So we have our round sheets that are digital, but then you've got this book that you write all your little things in. And I pulled out my book from 2024 and thumbed through, like, this is kind of what I like to see. My structure in the book entries have been a little scattered recently because things have been so busy. I was like, let me play a different book and show you kind of how I really like to do it. And so I was showing them how it looked a couple years ago as I was really figuring out the plant and understanding more. And I said, but here's my problem with the red book. I got to know where you wrote the information that I need, right? So yep. I've got a library of red books here that goes back a couple, 20 years. What are the odds that I'm going to open it up to the page I need that solved that problem? I'm not. So it's like I liken the red book to that part that you kept, that piece of scrap wood that you said I'm going to use someday, and you put it in your garage, or that plumbing fitting that goes, oh, I can use this, and you put it in your garage. And what do you do when you need it? You go to the store. You don't go in your garage looking for the thing. You go buy a new one. And so that's kind of what we do as operators. Well, I'll speak for myself. What I do as an operator when some weird anomaly happens, I don't go to the red book and spend 3 days researching like Gandalf, in Lord of the Rings at the very Fellowship. I go and I watch and I observe and I study and the thing that's occurring, and I start tweaking little things at a time, and I learn with it. And to your point about this little thing, data compiling that you're talking about, learning. I learn stuff about my plant all the time. And, some of the stuff I learn about my plant is stuff that I've forgotten.
Yeah,
like exactly.
You forget. And so what'd be really nice is if this is something that you guys do, I'm not sure, maybe it is if some situation were presenting itself, if you could kind of present like in an AI interface, like a chat bot will say, if you can put that in there and say, this is what's going on, and it can search your log entries, temperature, weather, who is working, all the different variables. How wide open was that valve? What was the hertz of the motor? And then it could say, we have found one of 3 possibilities, and then the operator can take it from there, because otherwise going through DMRs and SMRs and red books, I mean, fine.
We need Shawn to be on our team.
I was going to.
We're going to have to offer you a job after that sales pitch.
I can't take on anymore.
No, but it's that's the thing. It's not even really a sales pitch. It's more of a call, I think, to the industry as a whole. And again, not necessarily us as Turing specifically, but the tech industry that is attempting to serve the water and wastewater space. It is a call that generic information isn't useful enough to a real operator. So, if you can't reference the O&M manual for the piece of equipment that is having a problem, the maintenance history for that piece of equipment, and all of the telemetry that piece of equipment has generated or been related to over the course of its life, and the current status all in one place, then we may not be making something that's actually useful for a competent operator. And the reality is, we don't want to chase competent operators away. We don't want to replace them. I mean, maybe somebody out there does want to just replace all humans and have everything run by robots and AIs. That sure as hell is not what we are striving for, I don't think. Rather, those competent operators, people like yourself and the supervisors and plant operators that you've worked with and worked under over your career, need a tool to guide them in the right direction. And that tool should also be useful, and I think would be very useful for OITs and, grade 1 type operators who are coming in who don't have that intuition and don't have that, the ear to walk into the plant and say, that pump's not right. Instead, to go to, have an assistant that can say, hey, this pump might not be right. Go look at it. And instead of waiting for it to fail, go look at it now and let us know. And hey, if the AI is wrong, great. We've wasted 10 minutes of your day as you poked around and concluded, it's fine. But that's better than the alternative, which is saddling operators, and especially younger and less experienced operators, with having to build that intuition over the course of years. And it takes a long time and a lot. And your, I think, experience, your introduction is exactly what we talk about. How many people do we really have who have gone through that gamut of experiences and then stuck around someplace long enough to really understand it? Is that a realistic thing for 54,000 whatever utilities in the United States? Does everyone have somebody like that?
No.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
Man, I want to take all those books, digitize them. That's how that's the value for you guys, right?
Yeah.
If you can get all that digital, now you can search it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's the big thing.
And there's value there for sure. And we certainly, somebody who's watching goes, well, that's easy, just digitize and Control F, right? Search it. Sure. Also, I mean, and this gets to context, because it's easy to pick that up, what I said, apart and say, oh, I'm going to get on the keyboard and I'm going to teach this guy something. This plant has gone through several iterations. And the notes of 10 years ago don't apply anymore. The notes of 5 years ago don't apply anymore. We did a 3 years ago, I was the operator that commissioned the membrane bioreactor. It changed the game completely. So as of 3 years ago, I don't care what you wrote in the book.
Yep.
Right.
And that may sound prideful, and I don't mean to. I just don't know how it applies, because you never had two processes running in parallel before here. And so, maybe the primary clarifier, but no, because the recirculation rates have all changed. Everything's changed. And so it's like, well, since the game has changed, now I've got to rewrite the book. And that's fine. I love that stuff. So I just want, if anybody out there was like, why don't you just digitize them and search them? I'm telling you, it's difficult. And I think anybody who's gone through a plant expansion or a complete plant upgrade can vouch for what worked 5 years ago is no longer 100% accurate. Yep. Maybe some accuracy. And I just mentioned this a little kind of in the nexus of what we're talking about on my latest video on the channel, where I talk about primary sludge withdrawal rate. And I did the math. It's a grade 3 math problem where you settle pounds of TSS settled out, and you got 150 GPM pump and the 2.5% total solids concentration. How many minutes do you set your timer for your sludge pump if you're pumping twice every hour? So this is a pretty standard grade 3 math problem. So I worked it out. And before I worked the math problem out, I made a comment. I said, the math is to get you close. Everything in a plant is dynamic. It's moving all the time. Things change. The things that are being flushed down the toilet are different than what were flushed down the toilet 10 years ago. The Californians are more likely to have low flow toilets now than they were 10 or 15 years ago. The concentrations are different. The flow rates are lower, but the concentrations are higher. Pounds per day kind of level out, but what do you do with a more concentrated influent and less of it? So there's these conversations, right? And I said in the video, the math gets you, the books and the math, that get you in the ballpark, okay? Sludge judging and watching gets you there, gets you home, okay? And this video I did with this, did a video with San Luis Obispo's WRF, and that's going to be coming out on my channel in the next couple weeks. I'm still editing it. We did their whole solids train from primary and WAS being blended all the way cogeneration, dewatering, the whole shebang. And Landon in this video says multiple times, and we have found via time that we do this. And I don't know, I didn't really talk to him about it, but it was so profound for me. And I hope that people that watch that video really pick up. He says it multiple times via time, because what really separates the book knowledge from the field is watching it and observing it and understanding it and learning it. And no matter how much we try to make the biology fit in a box that we want it to fit in, well, the MCRT should be 10 days. Well, why? Well, because it should be. No. We don't get to decide what the MCRT is.
The bugs decide that.
The bugs decide what the MCRT is. We listen, and then we create the environment they like. Okay?
That's right.
Full stop. That's our job. And so the operator that tries to bend the plant to his will, because that's what the book says, is the operator that will probably wash out, die of a heart attack, or never get any sleep. The operator that goes, yes, I understand what the books say, and the books are great, and they are absolutely necessary, and I understand what the math says, absolutely necessary. I also know enough to know at this point that I don't know enough, and I've seen enough to know that I have so much more to learn. And the best teacher is all the little components around me telling me, it's almost an orchestra when you watch the whole plant moving together and understanding, like it's a symphony of pumps and motors and bugs and chemicals and this thing and that thing. And so I said earlier, the plant becomes almost an extension of yourself. You just kind of use the force almost. Like it's like, oh, yeah. That's not right. Something's not right. Like when I feel the plant, everybody is, I give a tour or something, and the plant around 11 something in the morning, boom, 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 you hear a check valve slam shut. And, oh, what was that? And I look at the clock and go, oh, we just had influent pumps just changed. Like that's their 24-hour cycle. That's just, and we got to address the check valve slamming. There's some water hammer there. But I mean, that's what that was. That's what you just heard. So I think that's what separates an operator is stuck in Sacramento State land, which I love Sac State.
It's necessary.
Sac State guys,
I love you. It's a step to be something else.
It's a step. The proficient, not talented. That's not the right word. The proficient, skilled, expert operator. They approach with a curious mind, and they never think they already know the answer when something happens. I've seen a lot of operators, when the brainstorming comes, go, no, it can't be that. Whoa, those are some dangerous words you just uttered because you just closed your mind, okay? It can't be that is probably the worst thing you could ever say when you're troubleshooting, right? Or trying to figure out why something is. It's, that's what it is. The 3 most powerful words in the English dictionary. Do you guys know what they are?
I don't know.
I can't wait to hear them.
You just said them. I don't know. I don't know, because it opens your mind.
Yep.
Right, and it reminds you that you don't know everything, no matter who you are, and that now I'm going to learn something today. I either know the answer, or I'm going to learn something today, and that's how it's just a great way to approach problems. But
absolutely,
awesome.
and if we can speed that process to getting people to that mindset where they can be comfortable having that type of open mind, while also maintaining whatever the risk tolerance of their actual, job description is required to be. I think that's where we hope tech fits into this industry and can do something that is useful and helpful for operators and maintenance techs and all the folks. Shawn, I know we're kind of at time. I'm sure you need to clock back in and get back to your primary job here, but we very much appreciate you coming on. We hope that you'll consider coming on again, or maybe you can host next time, and we can chat again if you'd like. But we really appreciated having you. We really appreciate the insight that you bring and the unique take. I hope that folks will listen to this and sort of follow along, not necessarily in the exact footsteps of your journey, but in the footsteps of being open-minded and wanting to help out and help fellow operators and continue making everybody who works in this industry, including those of us who are not operators, better and more useful, because these systems are critical and important, and we don't want them to be forgotten. So thank you very much for the time. Kirk, anything you want to say to end us off here?
Well, I'm going to let Shawn end it off, but I'm thinking, I heard Tri-State. I heard we should be doing live feed. I'm thinking maybe we get together and do a live feed at the Tri-State sometime. So
yeah,
I think that would be a blast, and kind of walk around and talk to people, just see what's going on. That could be a really fun opportunity for us in the future.
No, absolutely. And I'll leave on this. I think AI, and I dog on AI chatbots pretty hard on the on my channel, not because they're bad. I use them, but I use them in a certain way. And the exam prep's not I don't think, and there's people that will fight me to the death over that they think they're great for exam prep. That's fine. If it works for you, whatever. I don't think that certain generalist AI chatbots like ChatGPT and these things are great for exam studying, because they're wrong a lot. Not a lot, but they can be wrong. Mm-hmm. But with what you guys are talking about, I think, what is AI? It's a tool. And what's a skill saw? What's a socket? It's just another tool, right? And I don't think we need to be scared of it. It's not. Certainly Skynet could happen, and but then we're not going to know it anyway. I'm just joking. But the whole, I'm not one of those guys that fears the change. I'm one of the guys that looks at it intrigued. Doesn't necessarily mean I embrace it right away. I said, I'm kind of hard on the chatbots, but I am open enough to say, well, if it helps us do our job better, then let's give it a shot. And so I kind of wanted to end on that. I'm not an advocate for replacing jobs. I don't think you guys are either with automation, but automation has made it so that our BOD TSS is no longer 100. It's non-detect. Okay, so without automation, do you realize how difficult that would be for an operator to be able to pull that off at a large scale? Okay, there float switches and airlift pumps with just, I'm going to throttle it, make sure the compressor runs. No SCADA. Think about what we're talking about, operators. SCADA, if you have it, you know how useful it is. I'll end on that. And, if you guys disagree with me in the comments, as always, flame me. That's fine. You can go hard on me, but I just am where I am on that. So thanks for having me, guys.
Better yet, flame me and Kirk in the comments. We'll take the heat, because we very much appreciate Shawn coming on and saying this stuff. No, that's a perfect way to end, and thank you very much for the time. Thanks for everybody for tuning in to the Fluid Operations Podcast. If you haven't already, go and subscribe to the Wastewater Enthusiast on YouTube. Follow Shawn and his journey, and we will see you again next time. Thanks, Shawn.
Thanks, guys.